Hi, welcome to this session. We are privileged, excited here to have Citi as a sponsor for the Climate Bonds Conference. And we're going to talk for a little bit now to Val Smith, who's Chief Sustainability Officer for Citi globally, about the work they're doing and how they're seeing what goes on. And of course, I want to grill her on what's really going on. Val, look, you're in an extraordinary position because you've got a new CEO that came in this year and made a speech that I can only describe as electrifying markets in terms of its ambition and its comments about climate change and the need to transition. It was very exciting. But what does this mean practically? I mean, has anyone changed? Everyone just still going into work, usually in their kitchen nowadays because of COVID, but whatever, still going to work and doing the normal stuff, or are things actually changing in the bank? Tell us the story.
Yeah, I think, the story behind Jane Fraser's announcement on her first day as CEO, which was that Citi would be net zero emissions by 2050, and we're also committing to net zero operations by 2030, is that there was a lot of hard work and discussion and debate, frankly, that went into that decision and that big announcement prior. And there's a lot of hard work that's happened since then. So as we were going into Jane's first day as CEO and talking about this commitment, and she made the decision to make this part of her day one announcement and priorities.
Day
one. So this was her day one announcement as CEO, and we knew that this was going to be a pretty monumental change for Citi. We knew it was going to also necessitate a monumental change for our clients. I think going in, Jane talked a lot about the need both for ambition, but also for rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work of helping our clients to transition and thus transitioning our own business. Since that announcement, and I can get into more detail, but we have formed a net zero task force that pulls seniors from across the company into like a net zero community, if you will, that is learning and understanding how to execute on this commitment. I think it's fair to say that as much as we understood going into this, the sort of intensity of the work and the technical challenge of establishing your net zero plan and then of helping your clients to begin to understand how they're going to transition and what proof points we're going to ask for along the way. The technical challenge is real. So it's been pretty exciting to sort of dive into those details, but it's also required and will continue to require an incredible amount of capacity building as this flows through our bank and as our clients are also taking up the mantle.
And to what extent have the clients taken up the mantle? Has been the reaction amongst your huge client base?
Well, I think we had some clients that were already ahead of us. And obviously there was a fair amount of analysis of where our clients already were before we made this commitment. So some clients are ahead of us and we have been learning from them. For example, on the topic of climate scenarios and what scenarios are out there, how some of our clients in the energy sector, for example, have been doing climate scenario analysis for years. Some clients are, I think, in the middle, understanding the level of ambition required perhaps, but still early days in terms of understanding how to execute on that ambition and frankly, understanding the options for business model transition. And I think some of our clients are going to need a lot of support and a lot of capacity building as they begin to understand how to transition. So if you think about Citi's particular global footprint, we're the most global bank in the world, and you think about what that means in terms of our clients in emerging markets, there is a lot of work ahead of us as a community, and certainly for Citi to begin to help those banks, begin to help our clients, including some banks, frankly, to understand the metrics required to transition and to begin to think through those opportunities.
I mean, part of this is also how you structure a deal that can work given someone's got a big transition, often a very high capex load, even though capex is relatively low cost nowadays. You've got to make sure the returns are there. And I guess that's your whole business development, business advice, structuring side. There's lots of corners of Citi that must be having to be mobilized now.
Right.
Which means you've got a big internal job, right? Especially as Chief Sustainability Officer.
A
But what
big
does it look
internal
like?
job. I mean, I have to say, like, our bankers are definitely up to the challenge. And if you look at how really, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the green bond space, which Sean, you and your organization pioneered and continue to pioneer, that really was the big shift in terms of looking at sustainable finance as a whole and looking at those products.
Right.
So I think as we think about our clients transitioning, there's a piece of it that is around getting better metrics. Our clients have to develop better metrics, disclose better metrics. We all have to sort of get better at understanding how to measure our progress in our transition. And then there's a big role for sustainable finance products and for sustainable finance advisory. And, put transition in front of sustainable for transition finance products and transition finance advisory. So the bonds market is really what pioneered that, right? Because now as you see, as you look across, for example, all of Citi's different businesses from, debt to equity capital markets to our trade finance team, they are all looking at how we sort of put an ESG or sustainable or transition lens on like every product out there that we offer to clients. I don't think that's a huge exaggeration to say, and when you think about the opportunity, you put up the guardrails, right? Defining, for example, as CBI did, defining what's green in the bond market. Mm-hmm. You put up those guardrails, and then the ability to sort of innovate and execute within that, I think, is pretty incredible. And so that's what we're seeing inside Citi, that integration and flow of information around what's possible through to client products. Take that, marry it up with the bespoke, like one-on-one advisory to get that transformation to happen. And that's how I think it's going to evolve.
Val, you have made my day. This is so exciting. I mean, I know it's hard work. I appreciate there's a lot of work, but just the fact that you're telling me that it's going across multiple areas of the business is like what we want to see for those of us in the climate activists needing to address climate change and address the risks of climate change. It is just music to my ears. And I want to actually phone up the Fed now and tell them about this because, of course, they're looking at climate risk as central banks around the world need to be looking at. But you said something very interesting, at least to our audience, which is about green bonds being a bit of a kicker for this whole work. And just explain what you mean a bit more about that, because I want to drive the message home to everyone.
Okay. Absolutely. And I will just say that I'm not saying this because this is the opening of the Climate Bonds Conference.
Thank you for that.
I think we make this point often, which is as you look back, Sean, at, pre-green bond principles, right? Your organization was beginning to develop the framework for a whole host of different sustainable bond opportunities across industries. Mm-hmm. But what we realized is that what the market needed is some definitioning and some guardrails. And I think the green bond principles helped to provide that. Yep. And helped to get us used to thinking about financial products, not just as plain vanilla financial products, but as products where you could put like the green on top of, the social on top of, and, increasingly the integrated ESG on top of. So we've just taken that model through the financial system. I think we're not done. I think there's a lot more work to do in terms of really tightening up, how are we defining green? How are we defining transition and so on? But that framework, I think, is what we are taking to the KPI linked, loan model, for example, taking through our trade finance, sustainable supply chain finance, like that sort of ethic of looking at, putting the green lens on different products, I think began with CBI as well as the green bond principles.
And by the way, full credit needs to be given to Mike Eckhart, who used to be at Citi before he retired.
Absolutely.
He was one of the drivers of the Green Bond Principles. But the interesting thing is, essentially, we got some basic deal flow going that's created business lines. And what some of my friends in banking are saying is this has proven to management that there really is a business line and investor appetite here, which has then opened up the doors to be able to do more. Is that how it worked in Citi?
That is how it's worked in Citi. And I think for Citi, yes, like there's an element of the risk piece in here, understanding climate risk, understanding different types of sustainability risk, and the challenges that presents to Citi and to our clients. But I think opportunity is naturally sort of a longer term motivator for human beings, including bankers. And
absolutely right.
And so what we've done at Citi is begin to sort of reorganize our business units to be positioned for the opportunity. I've been at Citi for 17 years, always in the sustainability function here. And the amount of change we've seen in the last 3 years is like kind of awesome. We have just to give you a couple of examples, about a year ago during the peak of COVID, we established a sustainability and corporate transitions team within our banking group to look at all kinds of transition and, play that advisory role to our clients as they seek to, ratchet up their ESG performance. This year, we reorganized our business groups, focusing on the energy, power, and chemicals businesses into a single unit, the natural resources and clean energy transition team. These are obviously interesting business names for, banking teams. But I think more than that, it signals, first of all, how we see the transition opportunity as being very integrated as you look at the different ways that our clients are planning to transition their business models. And it requires a completely different mindset on the part of our bankers. And, just to get back to this training piece, it requires a different kind of capacity building. And so when I look at, for example, our partners in our net zero journey, it's not just the ESG teams in Citi, that we have embedded in different businesses. It is also those traditional banking teams that are right there with us doing the hard work of, figuring out where our clients are today and figuring out where we need to help them to get to.
And I guess that's the point, isn't it? It's addressing the challenges, addressing the risks, but mostly taking advantage of these opportunities that are opening up through this transition. You mentioned transition a few times, and obviously there's a lot of high carbon, and as you know, one of the themes of this conference is about taking high carbon companies to the kind of place they've got to be in this transition. How much are you getting reception from the high carbon sector of the market, which has generally been challenged and found it tough to figure out what they should be doing? Is it positive? Is the engagement happening now, or is it still a bit of work to be done? What do you think?
The engagement is definitely happening now, and there is quite a bit of work to be done. Both of those things are true. I've been impressed with the receptivity and the understanding of our clients in the hardest to transition sectors. And it's opened up, I'm not going to pretend that it's opened up conversations that are always easy, but I think it's opened up conversations that are pretty open and authentic, frankly. And, they go something like this. And the conversations are a little bit different with the leaders in the transition space versus the companies
contra las empresas que están organizándose para comprender sus oportunidades de transición. Pero siempre que ocurren cambios, la comunicación y comprender las expectativas de los demás son importantes. Y lo mismo está pasando ahora. nuestro compromiso con cero emisiones ha traído un nuevo tipo de involucración por parte de las partes interesadas. Nos ha ayudado a comprender qué significa cerrar el grifo para estas empresas, a comprender qué los clientes nos van a pedir para que nos preparemos. Hay una carrera hacia la cumbre en el sector financiero y eso tiene que ver con la involucración de los socios y a cómo comunicar nuestras intenciones. Y tiene que ver con ponerse a trabajar. James dijo el primer día que habíamos firmado ese compromiso y que estábamos trabajando arduamente con nuestros clientes. Trabajar arduamente es un mensaje importante respecto a lo que estamos haciendo de trabajo. Y a nuestros clientes les decimos que vamos a trabajar arduamente con ellos. Y de parte de ellos escuchamos que están listos para empezar estas conversaciones difíciles y hacer elecciones difíciles. No voy a decirles que no me ha impresionado la cantidad de clientes que nos preguntan, ¿qué podemos hacer? ¿Qué podemos esperar para que podamos trabajar correctamente? Bueno, hoy el tema es entrenamiento, el tema de nuestra sesión es entrenamiento. Y usted ha probado que apoya en la capacitación en esta fase de transición para que la gente pueda aprovechar las oportunidades que surgen. Es una historia muy interesante. El viernes hablaremos de transición y el jueves John Morton nos va a hablar de las oportunidades. Es muy entusiasmante que a la gente le interese esto para obtener retorno sostenible. Creo que tenemos ahora que concluir esta charla. Podríamos seguir hablando durante horas, pero en otro momento vamos a volver a hablar de este tema. Ahora, voy a pedirle que a quienes nos escuchan les dé su consejo en este sentido. Quiero subrayar que no pensamos en esto como usar antes y usar después. Yo soy un competidor y pienso en esto en términos de prepararse para una carrera. Acuérdense de las Olimpiadas y de las maratonas, y me gusta mucho la historia de la gran resiliencia que se requiere para llegar a la meta en un maratón. Y lo mismo pasa en todas las esferas de nuestra vida. El mensaje que me gustaría dejarles es que el maratón es la ambición, pero por detrás de esa ambición hay una gran cantidad de trabajo arduo. Y no es un trabajo que puedas hacer de manera aislada. Comprender las necesidades de datos y los impactos y comprender los productos financieros disponibles, como por ejemplo toda la gama de títulos que existen. Yo a mis colegas del sector financiero les dejo el siguiente consejo. Hay muchos foros teniendo lugar con capacitación donde se pueden enterar de este tema. Es muy importante aprovechar estas oportunidades y creo que a nuestros clientes yo les aconsejaría que les digan que nos tienen que responsabilizar, nos tienen que hacer responsables. Tener ambición es importante, salir adelante es importante y esta implementación y la fase de integración son increíbles y es en esta fase donde tiene lugar el trabajo arduo y toda la animación por detrás de las bambanillas es real. Entonces, les diría que aprovechen esta oportunidad para capacitarse y para comprender las oportunidades que ofrece la transición y que trabajen para acelerar estas áreas. Me estoy muy contento por escuchar tus palabras. ¿Podríamos haber tenido esta charla hace 5 años? No, no. Esta charla no la podríamos haber tenido 5 años atrás, para que se den cuenta de cómo las cosas avanzan muy rápidamente. Bueno, debido a todo lo que está ocurriendo en el mundo, necesitamos toda la ayuda posible para alimentar nuestra esperanza. Gracias por los comentarios, principalmente sobre invitar a todos a trabajar con nosotros y para que todos tengan la oportunidad, no solo las empresas que actúan en el área, sino también los ciudadanos. Muchas gracias y buena suerte. Necesitamos que ustedes tengan éxito, no solo nosotros en Climate Bonds, sino todos los habitantes del planeta. Y de nuestra parte seguiremos trabajando con ustedes en esta fase de transición. Vamos a alcanzar 3 trillones de dólares y está creciendo mucho y Citi es un aliado de nosotros. Gracias, Sean. Es un honor ser un aliado de ustedes en Climate Bonds. Gracias.